Hey pre-algebra students, hope you guys are having a good flex day so far. Here is our lesson for the day is over estimating square roots. It should be a pretty short lesson, so just bear with me for a little bit. It's obviously on OneNote underneath your content library, or your class notes, sorry. So going to get started with the learning targets first. Number one, I can estimate the square roots of numbers that are not perfect squares and without using a calculator. And I can find the two integers that the square root of a non-perfect square is between. So first of all, let's go ahead and start off by listing all of the perfect squares in order. So number one, the first perfect square, 1 times 1, and that's going to be just 1. The next one up is 2 times 2. So that is 4, and hope you guys can see the pattern that's going on here. Next one's going to be 9 for 3 times 3. 4 times 4 is 16. 5 times 5 is 25. And so forth and so on. Let's go ahead and fill these out real quick. Oops. All right, and here we've got the rest of the perfect squares. So we've got all of our perfect squares here, and now on the right side, we've got this chart. In the directions say each number in the chart below lies in between two perfect squares. Write the two integers the square root of this non-perfect square is between, and circle the one that's the closest. So right now we've got 35 here. It's not a perfect square. 35 is in between two perfect squares, and we need to identify first of all which two they are. So we think about it, 35 is really close to 36, which is a perfect square. And it's also, so if it's less than 36, that means it's also going to be in between 25. So that means the two perfect squares this is between is 25 and 36. You can see here, 35 would be somewhere in the middle of these two numbers. So it's in between 25 and 36. We always want to list the smaller number to the left. So in this situation, 25 goes on the left because 25 is smaller than 36. And then we have to circle which one's the closest as well. And you guys should be able to tell pretty easily that 36 is closer than 35. So we're going to go and circle that one. Next one up is 125. So we need to look at which two perfect squares this is closest to. If we look down here, we've got 121 and we got 144. And 125 is right in between those. So the two perfect squares, it's going to be 121 and 144. And then we need to circle which one it's closest to. So we can see that 125 is a lot closer to 121 than it is to 144. I want you guys to go ahead, pause the video, and fill out the rest of this chart. Alrighty, hopefully you guys pause your video and work through that. After pausing my own video, I realized I misread the directions. You're supposed to write down the two closest square roots of the non-perfect square. So in this situation, this first one, 35, 36, 6 is the square root of 36, sorry, and 5 is the square root of 25. So those are the two closest square roots to the non-perfect square. So 5 and 6 would have been the two closest square roots. So going forth with the rest of these, we had 11 and 12. 11 is closer. 12 and 13. 12 is closer. 1 and 2. 2 is closer. 14 and 15. 14 is closer. 4 and 5. 4 is closer. 9 and 10. 10 was closer. And 15 and 16 with 16 being closer. Again, just going to restate this. You always want the smaller number on the left side. So moving forward, got this down here. How to estimate square roots. There's some hints right here. You can go ahead and read through this on your own if you'd like, but I'm going to keep going with this part, and this is actually the last part of our notes. Like I said, it's really quick, and then you'll have some practice on IXL. So homework, sorry. But first here, each square root is between two integers. Name the two integers. So it's very similar to what we just did at the top. So this first one here, with a square root of 35, what two whole numbers would the square root of 35 be closest to? So if we think about 5 squared is 25, and 6 squared is 36, so we know 5 and 6 are the two closest square roots. This next one, we have 44.8. So the closest one to 44.8 would be 49, and that's the square root of 49 is 7. And the one lower than that would be 6, or 36, which would be, the square root of 36 would be 6. So the two closest ones here are going to be 6 and 7. Moving down to this problem right here, I wanted to work through this real quick. After working through this one right here, I'm going to have you guys work on these last three, and then I'll have we'll come back together for answers in a second. But we want to estimate the nearest square root, the nearest integer. Sorry. So we have the opposite, or negative square root of 250. So first of all, we want to think which one is what square root is closest to the square root of 250. So if we think about them, the square root of 25 squared, excuse me, let me catch myself. 15 squared is going to be 225. 16 squared is going to be 256. So we know 256 is closer to 250. So we know this is going to be 16. 16 is the closest square root to the integer. However, we want the negative of the square root. So this is actually going to be negative 16 is the closest integer. So go ahead and work on these next three. Write down your answers, and then pause your video. And then when you play it, you should have my answers up. All right, hopefully you paused the video and you jotted down your answers. So the first one up here, we have the negative of the square root of 54. So the two closest integers would be negative 8 and negative 7. And just a heads up, you need to write it in this order. Remember, the smallest number goes on the left, while the bigger number goes on the right. In this case, since these are negative numbers, negative 8 is smaller than negative 7. So make sure that when you're working with negatives, the larger number is on the left, even though, so the negative 8 would be on the left and negative 7 would be on the right. For this one down here, estimate the square root to the nearest integer. 64 and 81 are the two in between 70, on the sides of 70. And so 64 would be the closest, so 8 is the nearest integer. And for this last one, the square root of negative 8. Remember from last lesson, you cannot take the square root of a negative number, because that would be saying that there is a negative number times a negative number that would equal a negative number. And we know that is not correct. So this will be an imaginary number because it does not exist. If you guys have any questions over this lesson, please let me know. Send me a message. If not, go ahead and get started on your IXL homework.